Welcome back, everyone. Have you ever wondered what events led to the fateful attack on Pearl Harbor? A question that takes us back to the early 20th century, a time when the world was on the brink of a cataclysmic conflict. Japan, an island nation in East Asia, was rapidly expanding its territories. With imperialistic ambitions, it had set its eyes on the resource-rich regions of Southeast Asia and the Pacific, territories that were, in many instances, under the control of Western powers. Japan's expansionist policy was seen as a threat by these powers, particularly the United States. The US, a country founded on democratic principles, was deeply concerned about the rise of militarism in Japan. As a countermeasure, the US initiated a series of embargoes, effectively cutting off Japan's supply of vital resources such as oil and steel. These were resources that Japan desperately needed to fuel its war machine and further its expansionist agenda. These embargoes were a significant blow to Japan's ambitions. They needed these resources, and being cut off by the US was tantamount to a declaration of economic war. This led to heightened tensions between the two nations, and diplomatic negotiations began to break down. But Japan wasn't ready to back down. They saw the embargoes as an affront to their sovereignty, a challenge that they could not let pass unanswered. Meanwhile, the US, confident in its naval prowess, didn't believe Japan would dare instigate a direct military conflict, but they were gravely mistaken. In the midst of these escalating tensions, diplomatic attempts to resolve the conflict crumbled. Negotiations between the two nations were at a standstill. The US stood firm on its decision to maintain the embargoes, and Japan was left with few options. The stage was set for a confrontation that would ultimately change the course of history. And so the stage was set for a confrontation that would shock the world. A confrontation that would plunge the United States into the Second World War. A confrontation that would become known as the attack on Pearl Harbor. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, as President Franklin D. Roosevelt so aptly put it. The dawn of that day was shattered by the thunderous roar of explosions. The Pacific air vibrated with the hum of aircraft engines as the Japanese forces unveiled a meticulously crafted strategy. Their target? The unsuspecting US Pacific Fleet anchored peacefully in the serene waters of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The Japanese attack was a masterstroke of military precision and timing. Launched in two waves, the first wave targeted airfields and battleships, while the second focused on other ships and shipyard facilities. Their plan was to cripple the Pacific Fleet, buying time to solidify their positions in the Pacific before the United States could respond. The damage inflicted was colossal. The pride of the fleet, the battleships, bore the brunt of the assault. The USS Arizona, her hull ripped apart by a cataclysmic explosion, sank with a loss of over 1,000 men. The USS Oklahoma capsized, while the USS California, USS West Virginia and USS Nevada were severely damaged. In total, 8 battleships, 3 cruisers and 4 destroyers were hit, with nearly 200 aircraft destroyed. Yet, the most grievous toll was in human lives. Over 2,400 Americans were killed and nearly 1,200 were wounded. Most were young men, just at the dawn of their lives, their dreams ebbing away amidst the smoke and flames. The attack lasted less than 2 hours, but its effects were far-reaching and enduring. The tranquility of a Sunday morning had been replaced by the harsh reality of war. The surprise attack had caught America off guard, yet it also ignited a flame of resolve that would not be extinguished. In a matter of hours, the United States had been thrust into the throes of war. In the wake of the attack, a stunned nation rallied. This was not just an attack on Pearl Harbor, it was a call to arms that echoed throughout the United States. The shock of the assault soon gave way to a collective resolve that would define the American spirit in the face of adversity. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, guided by this spirit, addressed the Congress on December 8, 1941. His words were a clarion call, not just to the lawmakers in the room, but to every citizen across the nation. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, he began, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. His speech was a rallying cry, a call to arms that echoed across the nation, from the skyscrapers of New York to the cornfields of Kansas. The reaction was immediate and unanimous. Congress declared war against Japan, marking America's official entry into the Second World War. The sleeping giant had been awakened, and it was ready to fight back. But declaring war was only the beginning. America had to mobilize its vast resources and transform its peacetime economy into a war machine. This was no small task, but the American people rose to the challenge. Factories that once produced cars and refrigerators were converted to manufacture tanks and aircraft. Citizens from all walks of life, farmers, factory workers, businessmen and housewives, contributed to the war effort in their own ways. The nation, once divided by isolationist sentiments, was now united in its resolve to fight back. In the months and years that followed, America's response to the attack on Pearl Harbor would shape not just the course of the Second World War, but the course of history itself. The nation, once a bystander, was now a key player on the global stage, ready to fight for freedom and democracy. America, once on the sidelines of the global conflict, was now in the thick of it. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a turning point not just for America, but for the entire world. The cataclysm of the 7th of December 1941 was indeed a turning point, a pivot on which the world spun from one epoch to another. America, previously content to watch the war from the sidelines, was thrust into the forefront of the global stage, taking up the mantle of leadership among the Allied powers. The immediate aftermath saw a nation united in its grief and its purpose. America's entry into the war marked the beginning of a slow but inexorable march towards victory. The resources and industrial prowess of the United States were mobilized on a scale never seen before. Factories that once produced cars were now churning out tanks, aircraft and artillery. America's contribution to the Allied victory was not just in the form of men and women in uniform, but also in the machines they used to fight. But the attack on Pearl Harbor did not just change the course of the war. It also heralded the dawn of a new age, the atomic age. The Manhattan Project, born out of the fear that Nazi Germany was developing its own nuclear weapons, led to the creation of the most destructive force the world had ever seen. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, while controversial, arguably brought a swift end to the war. Yet the atomic age was not just about the creation of weapons. It also led to advancements in nuclear power and medicine, and sparked debates on the ethics and responsibilities of scientific discovery. The world was now living under the shadow of the mushroom cloud, and it had to learn to navigate this new reality. In the wake of the attack on Pearl Harbor, America emerged stronger, more resolute. It rose from the ashes not just as a military superpower, but as a beacon of hope and freedom in a world torn apart by war. The world would never be the same again. As we look back on the events of December 7th, 1941, what lessons can we draw? The echoes of the attack on Pearl Harbor still resonate, not just in the annals of military history, but in the hearts of every American. It was a day that forever changed the course of a nation and the world. But why is it so important to remember this event, and what can we learn from it? The attack on Pearl Harbor was a turning point in American history. It was the moment when the United States, once a nation at peace, was thrust into the throes of war. It was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that even the mightiest nations are not immune to attack. From this we learn the importance of vigilance, of being prepared, and of standing strong in the face of adversity. Yet, Pearl Harbor is not just about the horrors of war. It is also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In the aftermath of the attack, a nation came together. Ordinary men and women became heroes. They fought, they sacrificed, and they persevered. From this, we learn the power of unity, of courage, and of determination. In today's world, the lessons of Pearl Harbor are more relevant than ever. As we grapple with new threats and challenges, We must remember the lessons of the past. We must remember that strength is not just about military might, but about the spirit of a people united. We must remember that courage is not just about fighting, but about standing up for what we believe in. And we must remember that peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice, freedom, and equality. Pearl Harbor is a stark reminder of the cost of war, the value of peace, and the enduring spirit of a nation. As we reflect and remember, let us not forget these lessons. Let us honor the memory of those who fought and fell, not just by looking back, but by looking forward, with hope, with courage, and with resolve. Thanks for stopping by. See you again next time.